Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for talking to me, first off. And second, I kind of wanted to say thank you for making a Predator film exactly like I wanted to see a Predator film made. Pretty much watching Prey was the kind of Predator film I dreamed of seeing for quite a
We
long
did it
time.
just for
So
you.
I felt that there were moments where I was almost
Heard
like,
about you.
yeah, is this for me? Yeah, well, it felt like that. It definitely felt like that. Um, what do you guys think makes Prey different to the other Predator films that there've been so far?
God, I mean, I think the fact that obviously it predates the other ones. This is the first one to do that in the franchise. And I mean, obviously in general, the Predator films all are a bit anthology, like they all have different casts and different storylines and stuff like that. And they all do relate to one another, of course. But this one obviously the title is different, and I think just the look of it and the texture and the time period is much further away, and I think there's definitely like it remains related, but it's a departure, and even the Predator itself,
Mm,
the weaponry is different, the design, the physicality even is has changed from others.
yeah, no,
This is the
definitely.
first time that the Predators ever had a woman lead as
Yeah.
well.
Yes. Yeah. No, and I was speaking to Dan about that, and I think it's so interesting when you think about the actors that have gone against the Predator before. They've all been pretty kind of big, beefy guys, and this character is just so different to that, but so much more relatable as well, I think.
Oh, thank you. I mean, yeah, I always found this to be, I mean, I didn't know that this was a Predator movie when I auditioned for it originally, so I always found this to just be a movie about a woman who wanted to hunt.
Mm,
And then later that element got introduced. And so the first thing that I knew about her was the way that I personally related. And, um, I think that's, of course, a goal or a good feeling, to think that maybe some people receive it that way.
mm,
Especially inside of a movie like this, that is, a big like sci-fi, there's all this like action and there's all these weapons and stuff like that, but also that there's, like real relationships and personalities and stuff like
mm.
that.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, one of the things that this film gets so right, which I've always seen in the Predator films, is the kind of mythical quality of the Predator,
Mhm.
um, and the kind of idea that it is otherworldly. But I think because of the Comanche element, it's played very differently in Prey, and how they interpret what the Predator is almost.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, like
Yeah, I think that that's like the, I don't know, I feel like
well,
that's like the
this
theme of
film
it.
was built, like a standalone film. And I
Mm,
think, by Dan putting it, in the 1700s, it does make it more relatable. But it also, to me, my favorite was the very first one, the
yeah.
original. So I feel like this is the closest to the original, that it's come, but yet it has like this unique twist because he said it in the past,
Mm,
which didn't happen in the franchise. So not only did he just crack that door open, he swung that door wide open for a lot of different things to happen. Like this shifts the paradigm of native culture in film.
mm,
This shifts a lot of things. We're able to have a woman lead. We're able to
mm.
have the whole thing in the Comanche language. I mean, it really just kind of opened a lot of doors, and it reset that bar high for representation and authenticity.
Mm. No, and I read that it's like when you're, I think, and a lot of people might not know, but when you're watching it, it's not a fictionalized world. It's as real. You got everything as real as you could make it. Was
Mhm.
that? I mean, how was it? Just must have been so much research or so much
A lot
work
of
put into
research,
that.
a lot of research, but Native people you know, like we're the original storytellers. So we have an oral history that is passed down, you know, from generation to generation to generation. So if you think of that time in the 1700s, not a lot of photographs, because there weren't photographs, nothing exists like that. But if you were doing research, like let's say at a museum, it's very hard to find artifacts and pieces from that era. But we do know what happened for me, because I'm Comanche, and this is like at the height of the Comanche Empire. So, you know, we have like a realization of, you know, what it was like to be at that time. But then, you know, we can layer in all these other aspects, whether it's music, language, song, even Comanche nuances. Like for us, we don't whistle at night. Comanches are a Plains tribe, a horse culture, and Amber is also from a Plains tribe, Northern Plains and horse culture. So, you know, we layer in these things. Like her tribe, we don't whistle at night, and her tribe is the same way. They don't whistle at night. And when we were shooting that final, you know, scene when she's getting ready to level up and go fight the predator, you know, Dan was like, this needs something there, you know, there's just something, this scene needs something. And I was reading through it and watching it, and I said, I know what it is. I said, we need to do a whistle. He's like, what? And I said, yeah. I said, I said, Comanches don't whistle at night, because when you whistle, that calls the spirits, lets the spirits know where you are, and they're going to come find you, right? So the predator, being a Pia Mupits, which means big monster in our language, you know, she's ready for him to like, go ahead, come on, I don't care, I'm going to fight, right? So we did a lot of takes without the whistle, and I went running up and I'm like, Dan, this is the place where the whistle goes in. So I was like, Amber, you have to whistle. And she's like, what? Because we were shooting it. And I said, oh, just whistle. She goes, no. So we did get someone who's non-native to whistle for us. And then we did another whistle, you know, in post. But when Dan was in post and he was, you know, cutting the film, he was like, oh my God, that whistle, because we only did like 2 or 3 takes of it. And he was like, that whistle makes the scene. So if you didn't have a producer that was native, or somebody that was actually Comanche, that has these inherent things that we've lived with, you know, for centuries, as part of, you know, what makes us Comanche, you know, you wouldn't have little things like that. And it's just a small thing, but it makes the scene.
Yeah. No, definitely. And is it because when I saw it with obviously people speaking English, but there's an entirely Comanche dub of the film. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's what's really exciting about it being on Disney Plus, because if you would have seen it in the theater, you would have only been watching it in English. But because you watch it in Disney Plus, I encourage you to watch it in Comanche. And then to watch it in English, so you can watch it numerous times. And this is the first time as a Comanche woman that we have ever had a film entirely in the Comanche language. And it's the first time that a film has been released, a new released film in a native language. So like I said, this project really sets the bar high.
Yeah, no, definitely. I kind of, when I saw it, like I say, I almost wished I had seen that version of it rather than the English language version. Because I wanted it to.
I have great news for you.
I can. Yeah, there is. Yeah, I was so immersed in it anyway, and I think that level would just get me even more. The feeling, you just feel so there. I think and I mean that's so impressive when it is, like you say, it's a sci-fi film with a giant monster in it. I mean, to feel that level of authenticity I think it's brilliant. It's great. Amber, what kind of it's a very physical role. There's a lot of running, fighting, jumping. What kind of training did you have to do to kind of get ready for this?
We had a 4-week training camp in Calgary that we did before we started shooting, where we worked with weapons, like, you know, all the weapons you see in the movie, and like kind of Comanche style, you know, fighting. And the stunt team was there, and we had a personal trainer, and we developed a sign language that you see in the movie based off of real Comanche sign language. And you know, and also honestly the dog was there, and we're just, you know, getting ready for as many elements as possible.
And yeah, the dog, I mean, your relationship with the dog is great, and it's kind of some of the lighter moments of the film kind of come through in that relationship. I think it's really nice was a dog, people say don't work with children and animals, but like was it a good worker?
No, the dog was not like meant to be in movies. The dog was adopted specifically for this movie, so she was not like prepared in any way. She would just like mostly run around and like be chaotic.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was nice because like Dan and I had a conversation, and he was saying something about like, because there were so many moments when it was like, oh, she's supposed to be doing something, and then we'll just like run away or decide not to do that, and because she has not been trained for years and years to do this. So we were talking about like, okay, well, how do we like, do we stop? Do we keep going? Do we just pretend she's there? Do we just do it without her? Like, and he was like, we've never seen, at one point he was like, we've never seen you smile. Like he was like, never seen, it's always so like serious. It's also this. And he was like, I guess if she jumps around or whatever, like you can play with her. And I was like, oh, really? Because I was like how I would be acting, when we were not acting. Because I loved Coco, and he was like, yeah, just play with her, like let her lick your face and like laugh and smile if you want to. And it felt so weird to do in the scene, but that's like one of the scenes that you see really early on, and it actually ends up being like I think really lovely and really sweet. That like moment and that like kind of thing with the dog, and like that was originally not supposed to be in it. That was kind of a product of her being, unprepared.
I was improvising. She was improvising.
Yeah, she's actually just a really good actor.
She's up for numerous awards.
Yeah, she leveled up.
Yeah, like that dog from the artist. Yeah, maybe.
Who doesn't even compare to Coco? We don't even know who that is.
I was talking to Dan as well about the fact that everything was filmed outdoors. What were some of the challenges for kind of having an outdoor production like that?
I mean, just everything, like weather, mostly like different types of weather. Like, not that we got a lot of storms, but just like there were times that it was really hot. There were times that it was really windy. Like when I went in the water, it was really cold. Like I was like glacial runoff water from the mountain. So even though we were shooting in the summer, that was like freezing cold water. And I literally like we had to hike down a mountain, get in a boat, cross the river, keep hiking, and then we were like where we were going to shoot that. And so the only thing to like stay warm was like literally a horse trough filled with hot water that would like become a like amber soup, and it would like get colder throughout the day. Thank you. That is the correct action. It was not fun for me to be in either. I was like, because I don't know how to watch these costumes. But yeah, so it was like, and I would get colder. So it was just like, those were all challenges. But I mean, also it was like very nice. Like I know we both enjoyed just like being, out in just outside and like getting to work and, not being trapped inside of a studio, which definitely like presents its comforts, but also it was just nice to be, to be there. And like we were working on Stony Nakota Reserve land, and like I am Shahia Nakota. So just like knowing that we were there, like that was just cool for me. And there were a lot of challenges, but there were also a lot of things that made it really nice.
And I think the Predator is always kind of a character that's part of its environment. To make a film where the nature is so important to the main character, but also to the Predator, I think that's one of the reasons why it's such a great movie, because you kind of really put those two elements together in such a great way, I think. Jhane, I read that you're a kind of fifth generation dressmaker, and that you worked a lot on the costumes. What was like? Were you involved with all of them, or was it just kind of advising, or actual practically making them as well? Or
well, I'll let Amber answer that.
My favorite story about, just to like tell you how involved Jhane was. I mean, definitely like in every fitting she was involved, with everybody, about just like, because there are just pieces that that like we grew up with, and especially like Jhane has like her pieces are featured in like the Smithsonian and like museums, like museum quality work, her family. So there's that, but it's just also stuff that it's like you grow up knowing, like, oh, how does this tie on? How does this blah blah blah? So like Comanche staples, like twisted fringe and paints and stuff like that. But my favorite story is that there's a scene in a movie with a baby, and the baby is in a cradle board, which is like traditional for for Comanche people, and when you see that cradle board, no, that's not like a normal thing that probably people just like know how to make, whatever. So she like took it home over the weekend and literally made an entire cradle board,
Wow.
which is like not an easy thing to do. It's not just a weekend project.
Yeah, wow.
She made a cradle board over the weekend and like came with it to like shoot on Monday, you know. So like definitely going beyond the normal like producer role
Yeah.
and like doing.
And it was
Very
great because
hands-on.
my background, I have a fine arts background and I'm a traditional artist, which were the things that you mentioned. So for me to be like hands-on creatively was incredible because a lot of times as a producer, you're not always like a creative producer and able to do that. So for me, it was great.
Yeah. No, well, as I say, I think the movie's sensational, and yeah, I just think I've been a fan of Predator for a really long time, and it was exactly the film I wanted to see. I'm really glad you made it for me personally, as you said.
Absolutely.
And
You're
yes, thank you so much for
welcome.
talking to me. Yeah, thank you so much for speaking to me, and good luck with everything you've got going next. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.